Welcome back to the deep dive. Now, we often dig into complex geopolitical stuff, financial source material. But today, well, we're taking a bit of an unexpected turn.
We are.
Our source material today, it's this really high-stakes narrative. It details a corporate clash that kind of spills over into this intense personal conflict on a tropical island, no less.
Yeah, it almost reads like a blueprint for let's say, a very calculated acquisition. Not just of a business, but maybe a relationship too.
Right. So set the scene for us. Where does this all start?
Okay, so the core tension, it really goes back 3 years. It stems from this huge professional failure, actually. We're talking about Cameron Cody, who's this notorious corporate raider.
Never lost a target, right? That was his reputation.
Until this one. His only defeat was this hostile takeover attempt on the Steele Corporation, based in Charlotte. And it was managed brilliantly by Vanessa Steele, an executive there.
So that defeat, that's what lit the fuse for this really explosive personal animosity. So our mission today is to analyze this dynamic. How does someone like Cameron, this master strategist, shift from, aggressive corporate plays to this really calculated romantic pursuit?
And what can his acquisition strategy tell us about navigating these really high-stakes personal barriers?
It's a fascinating look at how professional hatred, maybe it's the ultimate smokescreen for some serious emotional tension.
Okay, let's start with Vanessa's side then. How does she see him?
Well, from her perspective, Cameron is ruthless, uncaring, callous even, which, makes sense given he tried to dismantle her family's business.
Understandable.
So when she gets word he's actually coming back to Charlotte, she executes this immediate, let's call it an escape plan. She bolts.
Where does she go?
She uses her sister Cheyenne's trip to Italy as cover and flees to house-sit Cheyenne's place in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And it's extremely secluded.
Right, trying to put maximum distance. But this escape, it seems pretty drastic just for a business rival showing up in town. It is. And that's critical because it really highlights Vanessa's deep-seated need for control. Her best friend, Sienna Bradford, she just cuts right through all the corporate stuff.
What does Sienna say?
She basically suggests the intense dislike isn't really dislike at all. It's a cover for, and this is a quote, sexual chemistry of the most potent and compelling kind.
Wow, so Sienna thinks she's running towards something, not away.
Pretty much. She argues Vanessa's running because deep down she desperately wants to jump his bones, Sienna's words.
Okay, that's quite a leap. From corporate enemy number one to irresistible desire. Is there anything that backs up Sienna's theory?
Well, yeah, it links directly to Vanessa's past vulnerability. It's revealed she secretly agrees Cameron is the sexiest, most handsome man alive.
So there is an attraction, she admits, at least to herself.
Yes, but her distrust, it's way deeper than just the corporate battle. 4 years before, she was involved with a man in London, Harlan Shaw.
Okay.
And he was incredibly cruel to her, told her she, quote, needed vast improvement as a lover. Just brutal.
Ouch. That would leave a mark.
Exactly. That trauma really cemented her absolute refusal to ever be at a man's mercy again. Vulnerability equals pain in her mind.
So defending Steele Corporation, it wasn't just business. It was like she was defending her own self-worth, her own boundaries.
Precisely. Giving Cameron any control, professionally or personally, feels like risking that same deep rejection all over again. Her escape to Jamaica, it's basically like she's trying to lock down the asset herself.
Building fortress walls makes sense. She sees Cameron as valuing structure, distance, control, things she can maybe counter with geography.
That's the hope. That physical separation will just make the whole pursuit strategically impossible for him, a dead end.
But Cameron Cody, he doesn't exactly fold easily, does he? This is where his, let's say, corporate acquisition instincts really kick in, and they are incredibly aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
He gets a tip about her location in Jamaica. Interestingly, from Vanessa's own cousin, Morgan Steele.
Right.
So what's his next move? Because it's immediate, it's expensive, and frankly, it's kind of shocking.
He completely changes his global schedule, just drops everything, and immediately purchases the house right next door to her secluded cove in Montego Bay.
Wait. He buys the house next door, millions of dollars, for what he has to know could be a very short-term situation.
Yes. He sees that huge real estate deal not as impulsive, but as his first strategic move to gain what he calls the most valuable asset of his life.
That's intense. So it's not reckless spending for him, for a guy known for calculation.
It's calculated leverage, not recklessness. He understands that proximity forces engagement. It strips Vanessa of her primary defense mechanism, retreat.
Ah, okay. So he's eliminating her ability to avoid him, turning her own strategy against her. It's proximity warfare, like you said.
Exactly. The ultimate high-risk, high-reward play. He just neutralized her escape route.
And Vanessa almost walks right into it. She sees this mystery neighbor swimming nude at dusk, notes he's overpoweringly male, oddly familiar.
Yeah, her curiosity is piqued, but she refuses to connect the dots back to Cameron. Can't let herself think it's him.
She even tries to be neighborly, right? Takes him a welcome basket.
Yes. Spring water, cheese, cookies,
Duh.
the whole 9 yards. And that confrontation, it's just pure power shifting. He reveals himself right there in his newly bought house.
What does he say?
Just drops this bomb. Hello, Vanessa. Welcome to my home. And then he admits it. He bought the place solely to pursue her. Tells her straight up her time for avoiding him had run out.
Game over for the avoidance strategy. So what happens next? Is it a demand? A threat?
No, interestingly, it's framed as a negotiation. He admits his desire, calls it 3 years worth of wanting, intense stuff.
Okay.
But then he proposes this affair, non-committed. But here's the twist. Vanessa will be in full control and calling all the shots.
He's giving her the control, the one thing she's desperate to maintain.
Exactly. It's brilliant psychological maneuvering.
Mm-hmm.
He's deliberately neutralizing her biggest fear, being controlled, being possessed, by contractually giving her the power to end it, the power of termination.
So she takes the bait.
She does. She's determined to strip him of control, this man who loves structure. So she agrees, but sets strict terms. 12 days only. The past is off limits, forgotten. And when it ends, it ends. No future, no repeats. She thinks she's totally dictating the terms.
But if Cameron's willing to spend millions, fly across the world, and then concede control over the terms, there has to be something much bigger going on here than just physical attraction.
Absolutely.
We need to dig into this strategic paradox that seems to define him. Vanessa sees him as purely callous, but the source material? It paints a much more complicated picture, right?
It really does. There's an article mentioned in Ebony magazine that highlights this profound contradiction. Yes, he's a corporate destroyer, but he's also established numerous philanthropic foundations.
Like what?
Things like the Katrina Relief Fund. Apparently, he even used his own plane to fly in aid sometimes.
Yeah.
It suggests he acts on some deep sense of justice, not just, profit.
Okay, that's a wrinkle. But is there concrete proof of this justice motive? Something specific?
Yes. The ultimate confirmation comes from the story behind his takeover of Global Petroleum in Texas. This reveals the real strategy behind one of his biggest corporate takedowns.
This is the aha moment you mentioned.
This is it. It shifts everything. Turns out the former owner of Global Petroleum, a guy named John McMurray, had brutally fired Cameron's grandfather, Fred Cody, 20 years earlier.
Okay.
And not just him, 5 other men too. And here's the kicker. It was less than a year before they were all due to retire. He robbed them of their pensions, their benefits, just cut them loose.
Oh, wow. So the takeover, it wasn't just hostile business or even simple revenge for his grandfather.
Exactly. It was about economic redress, justice. Cameron took over Global Petroleum not to gut it, but to right that specific historical wrong.
How? What did he do?
Morgan, the cousin, reveals that Cameron dedicated all of the company's profits for the first 5 years to be split among the surviving families of those 6 men.
All the profits. For 5 years.
Every cent. He used his corporate power to deliver profound, delayed justice.
That completely reframes his character. He's not just a raider. He's like an avenger, driven by fierce loyalty, correcting injustice.
Right. It explains so much,
Yeah.
including why his strategy with Vanessa might actually be rooted in something closer to healing than conquest.
So this hidden depth, this explains his Jamaica strategy too.
It informs everything. He basically ignored Vanessa's rules because he knew that 12-day limit was just temporary scaffolding.
Yeah.
Morgan apparently suggested a sneak attack,
Meaning,
go along with her rules for now, let her think she's in charge. But the real goal is to get her completely addicted, emotionally, physically, so she won't want to leave when the 12 days are up.
and did it work?
Immediately. The source says their affair was intensely passionate.
Yeah.
And crucially, it made Vanessa realize he was actually a thoughtful, caring, and unselfish lover.
Which would directly counteract the damage from Harlan Shaw.
Completely erased it.
Yeah.
The island fling achieved exactly what Cameron likely intended, therapeutically, for Vanessa, replacing that past trauma with a powerful, positive experience.
But Cameron, the supposed master of control, he finds his own walls starting to crumble too, doesn't he?
He does. He risks genuine vulnerability, starts sharing really personal stuff about his past,
Like what?
like his parents dying in an apartment fire when he was only 6, His father saved him but died going back for his mother. Heavy stuff.
Yeah, that's incredibly deep sharing.
And he talks about dropping out of high school at 16 to support his grandfather after he got fired, how he later got his GED thanks to this dedicated teacher, Mrs. Turner. It paints a picture of a life shaped by necessity and loyalty, not just ambition.
So he's lowering his own defenses, and then, as the affair is supposed to be ending, he risks total emotional surrender.
Yeah. On their last morning, he thinks Vanessa's asleep, and he just whispers it, "I love her."
Wow.
And later, he actually tells her that if she gets pregnant, the agreement is off. Showing his long game now includes, like, family, children. This isn't just a fling for him anymore, if it ever was.
So the 12 days end, they're back in Charlotte.
Yeah.
But it's not over.
Not even close. He pursues her relentlessly, forces confrontations, keeps the connection alive. There's these descriptions of spontaneous, passionate encounters. One even happens in her office during Morgan's campaign party.
He's really pushing her to give up that last bit of control, isn't he, to trust him?
Definitely. But Vanessa's still struggling. She keeps bringing up the negative press about global petroleum, the stuff she read online, the public story, not the private truth we now know.
Right. That gap between public perception and private reality becomes the final hurdle. So what finally breaks that barrier for her?
It's when she finally decides to act. She calls Morgan to get Cameron's address in Austin, Texas, and Morgan tells her the full story about the 5 years of profits going to those families.
The definitive proof of his integrity.
That's the final piece of data she needed. It confirms his actions were driven by justice, not just self-interest.
And what does she do?
She immediately gets on a plane to Texas, which is huge for her, dropping her control, going to him. And her confession is just total surrender. "I do trust you, Cameron, and I love you. That's why I came all the way to Texas."
Wow. Quite the journey from fleeing to Jamaica to flying to Texas. Now, the source material also brings in this other narrative, almost like a parallel story about healing and control. Tell us about Leah Mason and Reese Singleton.
Yeah, it's a really interesting counterpoint. Leah had fled her fiancé, Reese, 5 years earlier. She'd been raped, and because of that trauma, she had this intense mental block about physical intimacy.
Even with Reese, who was apparently supportive.
Even with him. So, like Vanessa, in a way, she maintained control through distance and avoidance. She feared that physical vulnerability.
So what changes for Leah? What breaks her block?
It's an external crisis. Reese gets into a sudden car accident.
Yeah.
And that forces Leah to confront the very real possibility of losing him. Forever.
Ah, the fear of loss again.
Exactly. That fear proves to be the catalyst. She has this realization. She says, "The thought of losing you, not sharing my love for you in a physical way again, made anything Neil the attacker had done to me no longer central in my life."
So the fear of losing the relationship finally became greater than the fear of the pain within it.
Precisely. That realization just shatters the mental block. The source calls it sexual healing. And they get married just 2 weeks later.
So in both these stories, Vanessa's and Leah's, the core conflict really boils down to the struggle, doesn't it? Between the perceived safety of total control and the massive risk, the gamble of real vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Cameron Cody, he starts out seemingly seeking this high-stakes possession, the woman he couldn't conquer in business. But his own strategy, his calculated pursuit, it actually forced him to reveal his true, complex self. And in doing that, he found unconditional love instead.
And looking at both stories, what we really see is that the riskiest pleasure, it wasn't the affair itself or even overcoming the past trauma directly. It was the willingness to finally drop the defenses, drop the control, and embrace transparency, vulnerability.
Cameron apparently reflects that their bond became a powerful force because no matter what, in the end, true love will conquer all. A bit dramatic maybe, but it fits the narrative arc.
It does. It highlights that shift from strategic acquisition to genuine connection.
So thinking strategically, what's the big takeaway here for you, the listener? In both these narratives, Vanessa's and Leah's, the final toughest barriers, the ones they'd controlled so tightly, they only really broke down when these characters were forced, truly forced, to confront the potential catastrophic loss of the relationship itself. Not just the fear of getting hurt again, but the fear of total loss. So it makes you think, what major controlled risk are you avoiding right now? What barrier are you maintaining? That might actually be the key, if you lowered it, to securing the greatest long-term reward. Something to mull over.